Hey, what is going on, Feral community? It's Blue. We are back with another video. This is the Druid updates. This is PTR updates. I don't know how solidified these are. And then also this is PTR. I believe WoW had put a new article out predicting that PTR would be, or this current build would come out in like mid-January. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyways, we are here to talk about the changes to Feral Druid. They did some changes to the general challenge tree. That's really nice. And I would say that overall, I think Blizzard is doing an amazing job at addressing the issues. Of course, I'm going to say in this video, like, first of all, this is PTR. The PTR is not open right now. Nobody has access to the PTR. So what I'm going to say is just going to be my opinions on what I see. Now, my opinions on what I see versus when PTR comes out and how it feels are completely different, right? Nobody knows stats, how stats are going to be manipulated yet. Nobody knows any of this information. So I just want to say, I'm just going to make this video giving you my ideas of how I feel, okay? So first, let's look at tuning changes. Circle of Life and Death damage over time duration compression reduced to 20% versus 25%. So it's not going to, those bleeds aren't going to, they're going to be lasting a little bit longer than they priorly had. My dog thinks that everybody's out of the house, so he's digging in the trash right now. Gambit, what are you doing? Uh-huh. Yeah, you thought everybody's gone. Come here. Taste for Blood bonus to ferocious bite damage increased to 4 to 8%, where it was 2 to 4%. This is really big. It's per bleed, and we have 3 bleeds, so this is 8 times 3 bleeds. So this is a 24% increase to bite. A little concerning. I think a lot of people have, worries of returning to how Shadowlands was. And that is not a good thing. But we were at 12%, and now we're at 24%. So that's a big change, right? Rampant ferocity damage increased to 35% of ferocious bite damage. So it was 25%. So not only are we getting a bigger bite, but those bites cleaves are hitting a little bit harder, which is nice. For me in my current build right now, this is like, oh yay, this is a positive, but we're going to see our bleeds going down quite heavily now. Dreadful bleeding bonus to rip damage reduced to 15%, so that's a 5% nerf to rip, plus whatever that was. Infected wounds bonus rake damage reduced 25%, so is another 5% nerf to another bleed versus what it was. I think we can all be honest here. Rake was extremely powerful. The type of builds and what I do in Mythic Plus is I hit Rake every single rotation because I proc Blood Talons. Obviously, if it's during Berserk, it's a little bit different. Sometimes you just go Spammer. But generally, I proc 1 Rake every rotation. Some people just do Spam Rakes, right? But doing how I play the game, Rake is already like one of the top damage abilities in my Mythic Plus, which could feel a little bit off. Right? It does feel a little bit off. That Rake is so powerful. It's almost as powerful or more powerful than Rip. I'm not sure. Obviously, with your tier set, it's going to be different. But it's very strong. So I can see that being nerfed. Vein Ripper. You guys, this is so important. I don't think you guys realize how important this is. Vein Ripper increase to bleed durations to 33%. So it was 25%. So this is an 8% increase to increasing the duration of our bleeds versus what it was, okay? Now the reason this is important, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at now basically what they're saying. I get the vibe that they're not happy with our bleed builds, and we'll talk about it together. Instead, they're going to make a bite build very meta. Well, let's hope the 2 builds are viable together. But I'm really worried that the bite build is going to be the build. And what makes this bite build the build What makes it possible is Vein Ripper, which is basically, instead of spamming Primal Wraths, because we do a lot of bleed damage, and then we get it's basically capable of doing that with Tear Open Wounds. Basically what we want to do instead is you want a Primal Wrath, and you want to elongate those rips as much as possible, Vein Ripper, so that you can bite in between each Primal Wrath as much as possible, right? Wound Inspiration damage increased by 66%. This is really cool, and they put it further down in the talent tree. Wonderful change. I love that. I think that's really awesome. I'm going to be a little bit weird here. I'm not really a fan of Feral Frenzy. I think the coolest thing about Feral Frenzy is the fact that it has a bleed tied to it. And it's like, oh, cool, maybe I can manipulate that bleed. Maybe that bleed increases my bite damage. Do I know? I actually don't know. But I know it will interact with Adaptive Swarm. So it's like, oh, there's some kind of cool aspects to it. But do I really like Feral Frenzy? Not really. It's just a button you press, and it's like, okay, cool, I'm full combo points. But for me, there's nothing really there. So I like to see that, hey, instead I can grab Lunar Inspiration. It's a choice node, which would be really cool. I do like Lunar Inspiration, and if its damage is stronger, that's cool. So let's take a look and let's read here. So Feral. To correct Feral's dependency issues, I do not know what that means. We've moved to talents that modify Berserk into a triangle under the core Berserk talent. We've repositioned Tear Open Wounds, putting it behind Double Clawed Rake, because in mass AoE situations where you'll want Tear Open Wounds, you'll generally also want Double Clawed Rake. So a few things here. I don't really care about the Berserk positioning. You can see here it's all in one spot, which is pretty cool, easy to grab. We see kind of some hints here. We've repositioned Tear Open Wounds. This is the correct choice, okay? Tear Open Wounds before live game happened, Tear Open Wounds was extremely strong, and it was amazing. It was really fun to play with. It was really helpful, okay? Really, really good. Basically, the nerf that happened was not touching its damage at all, but preventing it from doing damage to as many targets possible. So now the current version of Tear Open Wounds only hits 5 targets, and then beyond 5 targets, it's reduced damage, right? Which was enough to really hit that hard. And an interesting thing is we see, so that's really great. Moving that up to a mid-talent row, to a higher talent row, is really wonderful. Usually how the tree should work, in my opinion, and I think it does work. Top of the tree is points that are going to give you some damage, but they're not comparable to, for instance, points at the bottom of the tree, right? So if we can try to be as efficient as possible and grab that at the top, then we can use the middle challenge trees for usually points that are going to get us more DPS increases. So that's really great. I don't think Tear Open Wounds is super strong right now, so that's wonderful that they're moving it up, okay? What's interesting is putting it behind Double Clawed Rake, because in mass AoE situations where you'll want Tear Open Wounds, very interesting. They are indicating that you're definitely going to want this in mass AoE situations. But it's interesting that they suggest, hey, you're probably maybe not going to want it unless it is a mass AoE situation. Which is a little bit weird, because currently Tear Open Wounds is not a mass AoE situation. But what you're going to see is I'm going to give you a bite build. I'm going to give you basically different builds out of this new talent tree. And what you're going to see is the bite build, you do not want Tear Open Wounds, right? So maybe they already know that this bite build is going to be meta. Tear Open Wounds is not going to be good unless it's mass AoE situations. So that kind of hurts my heart a little bit, right? Just kind of jumping to speculations here. But that sucks. I like Tear Open Wounds. I like the bleed build. But that right there indicates to me it's probably not going to be a build anymore, and it won't be as strong, but that's just speculation. Survival Instincts. People were not grabbing Survival Instincts, you guys. There was a DPS. There was something on Bloodmount which said, like, hey, here's a build where you don't need to, where you do basically similar DPS, but you don't grab survival instincts versus a build that does grab survival instincts. Blizzard didn't like that. I wouldn't do it if the damage is similar. Like, why? Dead DPS is no DPS, right? But they basically said, like, hey, we tune this game around you grabbing that, so we need to put it in a position where you grab it. Okay. AoE. We like the power of Feral's Bleeds and are happy that there's an AoE build that allows you to just cast Primal Wrath. So they're happy that there's an AoE build. I don't think they were really ever expecting that. And the reason this build existed was because Tear Open Wounds, and Tear Open Wounds used to be really powerful, which really solidified this build. It's not as powerful now, we spoke about this, but the build is still good because of it. And you can just tell by the nerf to Tear Open Wounds, they were already wanting to head in a direction away from an AoE build. So they're happy that there's two different builds. But again, we're getting the hint, right, that they are not happy. They're happy there's two builds, but we're going to make a different one meta, right? But we don't want it to be the only option, as it locks in a lot of choices. I don't agree with that. It locks in a lot of choices. Whether you're going the bleed build or the bite build, you're going to talent into ones that affect your bleeds or affect your bites. The bite build is also going to be very dependent and very specific. And you're going to, that's fine. To make builds that don't reapply dots so frequently more viable, we're boosting the power of Ferocious Bite in single target and AoE, and pulling back the power of Rip and Rake a bit, especially in AoE. This also somewhat increases Feral's power to funnel damage into a priority target. That is very true. Okay, so let's talk about something. I think we're not happy about the bleeds, but Feral is in a very good state. But if you're looking at the damage meters and like what the damage is looking like, it's in a really bad state. It's in a very unhealthy state. I talked about this in a video. This is a video I made where basically I said, hey you guys, after the nerf to Tear Open Wounds, this is our damage profile in a mass AoE situation. We want Ferals to be a mass AoE spec, right? And what happened prior to the nerf of Tear Open Wounds, Rip still looked the same, but Tear Open Wounds was like a quarter of Rip, or creeping to like a quarter to 50%. To me, this damage profile is not healthy at all, okay? It is all Rip. It's not healthy, okay? Now, what's really cool is in this same dungeon, I ran with a Unholy DK. And we're like, what does Unholy DK's damage look like? Now this, to me, looks healthy. This looks a lot healthier. You got Epidemic, very strong, similar to our Rip. But you have other abilities that are assisting with this damage, right? You have this Plague here. You have Sweeping Claws. This is a mass AoE profile that looks much healthier, okay? And the thing is, you guys, like, our Rips, if our Rip is all of our damage, there's really not any gameplay or any manipulation that we can do, okay? By having some type of gameplay like this, it gives us a little bit more edge to really be better at the spec, to really get some professionalism in the spec, and it will show through DPS meters. Now, in this video, what I was upset about is I was complaining, well, Tear Open Wounds needs to be more, right? It used to be more. It really helped make the spec correct in AoE. It helped give it something, because this looks terrible. But what Blizzard decided, and maybe this is the best for the spec, is instead of Tear Open Wounds being that assistant, what they're going to have is they're going to have Ferocious Bite and this Rampant Ferocity be up here, okay? Now, is that the right thing? It probably is the right thing. Instead of Tear Open Wounds being up here, it is probably the right thing for Ferocious Bite and Rampant Ferocity to be up here, because one, it gives us a healthier damage profile, but two, I think Feral Druid is suffering a little bit in single target, and this is a fix to our unhealthy damage profile as well as single target. So that is probably the best thing to do for the spec currently. Unfortunately, we don't know what it's going to do to stats. We don't know what it's going to do to our bleeds. Our rip is still going to be the main damage source. Our rakes are still going to be a main damage source. But we're going to see that, hey, bites and especially rampant ferocities are going to be a big overall indicator of help balancing our damage a little bit better. Okay. So let's talk about builds now. Lunar Inspiration, they buffed it. It's a added complexity. They want people that want to do it to be viable and whatnot, and they traded it with Feral Frenzy. Dope. I'm not super fan of Feral Frenzy. It's kind of whatever. I think we talked about that. I really like Lunar Inspiration. It's wonderful. Okay, so let's talk about the builds now. What is the build that I would suggest now? So like you're probably running, if you're running my build now, what is that going to look like on PTR? Okay, perfect. So let's try to duplicate that build and see where we're going. Okay. So this top row right here, we have 8 talents. So we're going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then that's going to leave us this omen right here. Really important. You're going to see that we really don't have any capabilities of grabbing any of these other extra energies, and we don't want to be completely starved, so we need something. So that's 8. So we're done up here. So it's basically all AoE, this guy, and then these. Okay. Next talent is we have 10 capabilities. So what I'm going to show you here is we're going to go what we normally do. We're going to go rake, rip, depending on your haste, brutal slash. So we got 1, 2, 3 right here, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to grab all the berserks. 8, 9, 10, and I'm so sorry, this wasn't 10. This is actually 12. So we have 2 more. So what are you going to do for those 2 more? Well, we're going to take advantage of the ridiculous buff they did to bite. That is the best option. We have 2 extra talents because of the way that this is divided now to invest. Again, I can invest in maybe some energy options here, but we're talking about an increase of 24% to a bite to a primary target that has 3 bleeds on them, and then also, by the way, that huge bite is going to be dispersed by 35%. That's not something we can ignore. So those other 2 options are going to be in bite. Okay. Now down here, we only have 10 options this time. So we're going to go ahead and grab what we normally do. We're going to grab our apex. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to grab circle 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the other option is kind of whatever you want. To me, it's not whatever you want. We have our bites doing a significant amount of damage, a significant portion of our damage. So it's a no-brainer to me. It's, Convoke. And basically that's going to be the bleed build in the PTR version, okay? So it's going to be a bleed build with our bites hitting harder, okay? Is it still going to be Mastery Haste? I don't know. Mastery Haste would say, hey, we're getting so much damage out of our bites, I just want to bite more often. So I'm going to run Mastery Haste, okay? Or or this could still be a bleed build, but you run Crit Mastery, and your bleeds still do a lot of damage, but you want those bites to hit harder. You're going to have less bites, but they're going to hit harder, right? It could still be. Now let's take a look at a completely different version. We're going to take a look at a bite build that has not existed yet, but the PTR is going to make it happen, right? So we're going to grab 1. We still want Primal. 2. Still want Double Clawed Rake. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab 8 with our swipe. And you're going to be like, well, Blue, why don't we want to grab Tear Open Wounds? This build is going to be consistent of Primal Wrathing, waiting until the very last second before you Primal Wrath again, because I want to squeeze as many bites as I can before my rips fall off. And then I'll refresh rips, right? Tear Open Wounds is only effective when you're refreshing rips, when your rips are already on the target, right? You got 4 seconds. It's going to take that 4 seconds. It's going to convert it into damage. You're not going to have 4 seconds of rip left on this build, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, let's go down the tree. 9, 10, most definitely. This is a bite build. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oh shit, I don't mean to do that. I mean to count by 12. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so we're at 12. Right now, this portion looks a duplicate. It's the exact same as our bleed build, by the way. And now we go down, it's going to look a little bit different than the bleed build finally. This is going to be vein ripper. This is going to increase those primal wraths, elongate those rips, give us more time in between to bite. Okay, so this one we have 10 options. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're stopping here. I don't want to increase those bleeds, so we're stopping here. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we have 2 options. What are those 2 options in my opinion? Well, it's Convoke, because Convoke gives me bites, and it's also reduced cooldown of Convoke, but increase the possibility of actually biting with those Convokes, because bites are the build, right? So that's going to be this build. You guys, unfortunately, again, PTR is not working for me. It's not working for anybody, so these are just speculations. Hopefully you guys enjoyed kind of my thought process. I'm very confident those are probably going to be the AoE builds. You know, the build we're running right now, a different version of build we're running right now to take advantage of the new talents, and then also a bite build. I will be able to, once PTR happens, jump in there and test them, and then let you guys know, and then also I'll let you know the stats, right? That's easy information to check out. But that's it for me now. No information, basically, just my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take it easy. I might not post again for a while. If so, I hope you guys have wonderful holidays. Spend some time with your family. But that's it for me. Take it easy, everybody. Peace out. Bye.